Good morning, Gunners. My name is Grab, and welcome once again to another episode of the Rip Roaring Reds podcast. You're joining me on a Wednesday morning. There is no Jason. He is off jet-setting himself around the world doing his thing. So you've got to listen to my dulcet tones, unfortunately. If you're joining me for the first time, welcome to the channel. Really would appreciate any likes and subscribes. Turn that notification bell on to get alerted when our next video goes live. And today we're going to be talking about Nottingham Forest losing to Arsenal 2-1. We're going to be talking about Zinchenko. We're going to be talking about Smith Rowe. We're going to be talking about Jesus. And we're going to be getting maybe into some of the patterns that emerged during this game that are maybe not necessarily time for concern, but certainly something that is maybe worrying with games ahead. So let me get into the intro music and then we'll get going.
Saka. Saka! That is a dive under the goal! It's Bergkamp. That's magnificent!
This is my club. Fucking love this football club.
Henri. What a goal! Gabriel Martinelli! And he's scoring for Arsenal!
Right, we're going to start this episode off like we start off every episode. It's the Rip Roaring review, and it's over to... Oh, no, it's not over to Jace. It's straight over to me. What can I say? That was almost a perfect result, despite maybe some last-minute jitters and worries in that last 10 minutes. Forest did get a goal back. It was almost a perfect result heading into what will be probably a defining moment of our season. We're going to face Liverpool this weekend with 2 points currently behind them. It all could change tonight when they play Chelsea. But let's just say that, a win here and a win there really does put us back firmly into the mixing bowl of that title challenge. And, Forest is not an easy ground to go to. They really do have their tails up when they play at home. Their crowd, really, really good, really, really supportive. And it really did prove to be a challenge for us towards the end. This team have beaten United and they've beaten Villa at the City ground. And so it's not easy. And we have lost a few on the road already this season. And so I wasn't coming into this game with much optimism. I hoped and expected that we would win. But it's never going to be easy. And I don't think they did make us easy the last 10 minutes. But let's not, beat around the bush. For 80 to 85 minutes of that game, we were in, once again, absolute total control. We controlled, we contained them. We literally gave them no sniff of the ball. For anybody that is interested in field tilt, the first half field tilt was somewhere in the region of 97.5%. They literally just could not get hold of the ball. And I'll talk a little bit later about why that's maybe not a great thing for us. And really the game turned on its head when we actually started to give them a bit of time and a bit of space. But the match really did open up. Jesus, having wasted some chances earlier in the game, put that ball home and really changed the game and the dynamic of that game. And for him, I'll talk about him in detail a bit later, but he's kind of back to where I think we need him at his best, albeit not necessarily free scoring. I suppose some really good key points to take away from this game in terms of what we would look at for the games ahead. ESR back into the squad in the starting as the left 8 position. Go talk about him later as well. For me, a fantastic thing to do. I think a reward of his time in training. Arteta has obviously recognised that he started to elevate himself and is pushing himself in training and deserve that start. We'll talk about him. But, I think overall, this is a game that was not easy. On paper, we made it look easy. When we watched it, we won 2-1. We're heading into a real big clash at the top of the title. And I also think that, looking at some of the other results from last night, Aston Villa losing to Newcastle, I think, they've started to drop off. So that's another interesting ripple into that top 4. But yeah, really, really good result. Really, really happy. And I think we move on now to probably what will be the most important game of the season. Right, let me get started then with the topics. The first one we're going to talk about is Zinchenko. I've called this Zinny Redemption 2 because we did talk about some redemption in previous podcasts, because Zinchenko, for me, this was a man of the match performance, in my opinion. I've heard and read some other, I suppose, breakdown of Zinchenko's play during this game as being relatively slow. He slowed the pace down incredibly, and even I found myself at times screaming at the television, asking the game to be sped up, to increase the pace, to move the ball faster. But Zinchenko really did seem to offer an element of calm, an element of peace and tranquility. He would kind of shift the ball and be much more, I suppose, direct and specific with his passes, or he would wait for the right moment. He wasn't forcing the issue. He was waiting for those moments to kind of come up. And I do feel that this was, despite maybe not doing quite enough for the goal. And, you know, we've talked about some of his defensive shortcomings in previous podcasts for the type of player that he is. He's not necessarily the most defensively sound left back. But what he brings to this team in his complete free reign and complete autonomy with his role is integral to how this team is set up, is integral to our system. In the absence of Thomas Partey, and like hopefully he'll be back very, very soon, but in the absence of him, Zinchenko is effectively our line breaker. He's our connector. He's our passer. I know there's some arguments to be had that Declan Rice doesn't progress the ball enough, despite having statistics to the contrary. Zinchenko is that player. You give him the ball in that centre circle, and he connects the play. He pushes it out wide, or he's very direct. And I don't think our system and our play works without him. And I feel he was incredible today in his gameplay, in his approach. And yes, I do feel that he could have been faster, but I do feel that some of that methodicalness in his play is actually what we need. And I was surprised, well, I suppose not surprised to see Jesus pick up the man of the match performance, because obviously he got a goal and an assist. And those, you know, at the end of the day, when you're winning 2-1, those are the things that as a crowd, as a critic, as a pundit, you're going to remember. But for me, everything went through Zinchenko. Everything we tried to release went through him. And even the second goal, where the throw-in, you know, it was his, once again, quick thinking from that throw-in that really did mean that we pushed on and kind of did what we needed to do. Most people also call out a little running at the end with Ben White, you know, and the manager kind of said that that's pushing each other, you know, although the whole team's not happy conceding, he wants to encourage and promote that kind of behaviour, but in the right way. You know, sometimes after the game, he said it's emotional, gets heated. He loves that in the players. You know, I reckon some madness will be made out of this in tabloids, in the media, about there's problems in the dressing room, they're up against it. But really, I see this as professionals pushing professionals. And like I said, it gets quite heated, quite emotional at the death of that game. And, you know, it could have gone every which way. I don't necessarily think that Zinchenko showered himself in any glory with his, well, first he played him onside, and then he jumped up for a header, which he didn't win. But Saliba also played a part in this, where he got turned incredibly easy. And, you know, Awoniyi is a very, very strong player, but could have done better. And, you know, for the thing is, the way that we play football and the level in which we play football requires such an intense level of concentration for 90 minutes. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You know, we have to forgive some of those shortcomings in the fact that the way in which we play football and control games. Like for 85 minutes of this game, Nottingham Forest literally did not have a sniff of the ball, didn't worry Arsenal whatsoever. And that's because of how we play. And that elite mentality is difficult to keep up for 90 minutes. But I think Zinchenko did incredibly well. And I want to kind of give him his flowers, because really we need him. If Partey is not going to be fit, and, you know, if he did, Partey, I was anticipating that if Partey got some minutes during this game, he would start against Liverpool. A Partey Rice double pivot is going to be incredibly hard for them to break down, and something that their midfield, which I feel is quite paper thin at the moment, is something that we would have liked and needed, and I think would have been really useful to us if we were going to come away with the 3 points. But after seeing that Zinchenko performance, I'm less worried about the absence of Thomas Partey, and hopefully that he can come into that game, and hopefully those defensive shortcomings don't come back to bite us. Right, let's move on. I'm going to talk about the next topic, which is Gabriel Jesus. The topic was called "They Say He Walks on Water," because the crowd were in full singing voice, and he has had some difficulties of late. You know, there's been a lot of critics out there that would argue that Gabriel Jesus is not the right player. You know, on this pod, on other pods, The Athletic, BBC, lots of different articles. Everyone's made a huge deal of the fact that Arsenal need a striker. And that striker is probably going to be Ivan Toney. And I came out of this match then posing the question, and if Jason was here, I would pose to him, I truly wonder if an out-and-out striker is the answer. Because this game in particular for Jesus was, and it showed him at his best. You know, I think Jason would be probably writing letters of apology, because he has obviously put together this idea that, you know, we love Jesus for the things he does do, but we can't forgive him for the things he can't do. And those things he can't do are score goals. In this game, you know, I feel he answered those critics. He came away with a goal and an assist, and ultimately we won the game because of him. And Gabriel Jesus, he's at his best when he looks like he's having fun. And in this game, he was brimming with confidence. He kept himself in the game. He kept on pushing for that goal. And, you know, when he smashed it against the post after what I would say is one of the best moves of the game, when he smashed it against the post, for me, my head would have gone down. I would have lost all confidence and just believed that it wasn't going to happen. And obviously in his own mentality, he really kind of kept it together. He kept believing. He kept pushing. And I think the most impressive thing to me out of this performance from Gabriel Jesus was the fact that he was a Swiss Army knife of a player. He was up left. He was up right. He was dropping in deep. He was pushing up top. He was literally everywhere. That free-flowing kind of Gabriel Jesus is imperative to how we play football. And that's why I would ask the question, is a striker the right answer? The way in which we play the intricate balls, we don't necessarily play the ball behind too often. We don't try and do those breaking passes too often. I think there's an episode of The Simpsons where Homer becomes a boxer. And he just takes all the punishment for 90 minutes to try and then counter at the end, or at least push his opponent over. I kind of feel we do that with our passing. We kind of lure teams into a false sense of security, hoping that they make a mistake where we can break them down. And we don't necessarily use what I deem as an out-and-out number 9. I'm not too sure that would necessarily fit into the way we play football currently. I feel we'd have to change up our system in order to accommodate a player of that nature and that ilk. And, you know, Gabriel Jesus, for what he offers to the team, and this game was a light at the end of the tunnel that we've seen with some of his performances. It was really, really good. My concern maybe is that he can do that against some of the teams that are not as good at playing without the ball. I have to give some kudos to Nottingham Forest in this game, because they defended incredibly well. Another 11 men behind the ball, another low block that Arsenal found difficult to break down. And actually, I would accommodate to say that we did find it difficult to break down. But the fact of the matter is that I felt we broke this down quicker than we have in previous games. I think that for me is one of the things I kind of look out for. And, you know, commonly if we get into a game and we're in 70, 80 minutes and we haven't broken down that low block here, then I've kind of conceded myself to say that we're going to either draw or lose this game, because it's just not going to happen. I was really happy that at least in this game we were able to break down that block much quicker, and that wasn't through anything else other than, I think, Gabriel Jesus continued knocking at the door, continued pressure, continued playing the way he plays football, bringing other players into the game, intricate link-up play. And I think he had a great performance. He did deserve his man of the match, that he was given. I would just say that, you know, as a striker, this is the kind of thing that I expect him to do. You know, Zinchenko as a left back, it's not necessarily the game that I would suspect him to play, but he plays it incredibly well. You know, with Liverpool on the horizon, having both of those players at their best is really good for us, and hoping that he kind of continues in that form heading in to the game at the weekend. Let's move on then. The left 8. I was going to call this left 8 dilemma, but I didn't call it left 8 dilemma because I'm not too sure it is a dilemma, and I'm also curious as to who will start against Liverpool. But let's talk about Emil Smith Rowe first of all. A dream return back into the starting 11. He got about 70 minutes. He got a deserved start, I would feel. There's been a lot of talk about his continued effort and pressure in training, doing the right thing, keeping his head up and really wanting to play his game. We talked before of the potential cold shoulder that he's got. And I wonder if Arteta is softening, if he is warming. I saw some posts on Twitter yesterday that talked a lot about Arteta loves ESR, and I really can't understand where that type of terminology comes from, because we all know when Arteta gives you the cold shoulder, you are out in the cold. And Arteta has done that with ESR for many, many, many months. But maybe he is softening, because he obviously did get the start here. I feel a deserved start. And he offers something incredibly different to Kai Havertz. I feel they're two very, very different players. ESR, he's much more dynamic. He loves the ball at his feet. He can make those runs. He is much better at link-up play. He's much faster. I feel that the ball moves significantly quicker with him on the pitch than it does with Kai Havertz. Havertz is much more of a controlling, breaking up the play. Like, our second goal eventually came from the fact that Kai Havertz had broken up the play and headed the ball away. And so his height difference is something that, against certain teams and certain offerings, would be a better tool to use than Emil Smith-Rowe. But I really do feel in this game, Emil Smith-Rowe, he definitely, I want to firstly say towards the end, he looked like he might have picked up a bit of a knock. He seemed to be moving a bit gingerly. And I really hope, because this is, I don't want to say it, touch wood, where's some wood, I'm going to touch the desk. We had this problem with Jack Wilshere, as it would kind of ebb and flow between greatness and injury. And eventually it came to pass that he was never going to become the player that we all hoped and expected him to be. And I worry somewhat for Emil Smith-Rowe's career development. Played with injury so far and does seem to kind of fade in and out of the squad and of the team. And that, for me, is probably one of the most worrying things. It's like he did look like he picked up a little knock again towards the end, and maybe this is Arteta not wanting to rush him back into the squad, and probably with due course as well. But during this game, making some incredibly interesting runs, really, really involved, a lot more energy than what Havertz has to offer. His link-up play down that left-hand side was, for me, some of the best we've seen us play football. I'll talk a little bit later about Arsenal searching for what would be the perfect goal and how that maybe is a problem for us. But, I feel... I think Havertz comes in against Liverpool just because Liverpool are the type of side that I think are going to need Havertz's break-up play, his heights, and his, I suppose, more calm influence on the ball when compared to Emil Smith-Rowe. But we'll see. I also kind of think maybe that injury, if it is one, might play into that decision-making as well. But I do want to just call out ESR and say he had a good game. I think it was deserved. I think he played incredibly well for the situation, for the circumstance. And I'm happy that a Hale Ender is making his way and breaking back into that squad. Because for me, that is probably one of the key elements of this. We all loved Emil Smith-Rowe. We've got to sing the song again, which is very, very rare. And I feel that, there's more from him to come for the rest of the season. If he can really get back to scoring as well and give us maybe 5 goals towards the end of the season, those 5 goals are going to be incredibly important in our position in the table towards April, May time. And I'm hoping that at least now we've got another player in the mixer who can push and challenge other players on the pitch for a starting berth. And, there's nothing but good things that can come from that, I think, for Arsenal. Let's talk about his counterpart then in Bukayo Saka, because I have probably been one of his biggest critics on this podcast over the last few months to talk about how he has just not looked like the Bukayo Saka that we know and love. But Saka scored a goal today, and after that goal, his celebration felt different to me. It felt like he'd activated a different mode in the Bukayo Saka that we know and love. Usually after scoring, he's beaming with pride and happiness, a big smile on his face. He is the bubbly, the lovely, the dynamic guy that you see when he's interviewed. But he looked cold. He looked aggressive. He looked angry. He looks maybe somewhat villainous. And I like that about Bukayo Saka. I really do want to find some of that killer instinct inside of him. Maybe he kind of found some of that during this game, because he looked lively from the start. There was a lot going down that right-hand side, and Ben White was also doing some really good link-up play with Bukayo Saka. And I really feel this could be a bit of a return to form. And, for someone who people would deem as having a bad season, with 10 goals and 10 assists in all competitions, in now 2 consecutive seasons. He's the first since Alexis Sanchez to do that. Thanks to Joe for that stat. But his involvement, even despite having what many would call a quiet season, is quite incredible. I'd quite happily take quiet seasons at 10 goals and assists in all competitions, and we're not even in February yet. Part of Bukayo Saka's game in this game that I found particularly interesting was the switch up. With Smith Rowe, there were occasions where both of them would switch sides just to try something different. And actually, I feel that some of our best play came from the fact that we were able to switch it up and able to try something different. And the fact that Saka can probably do that more in trusting with Emil Smith Rowe than maybe he could with Havertz was good for us. It means we can try and, like I've said, a deep block is something that we've struggled to unlock. This could be another key that we try to unlock it with. And I'm hopeful that Saka is beaming with confidence heading into a Liverpool game, which is of the utmost importance that he is back to his best and firing best. Bukayo Saka is the linchpin of this team. Everything flows through him, regardless of whether he's scoring or not. There's a lot to be said about his cutting, his shots, and we'll talk a little bit about shots in a minute. But Bukayo Saka being at his best is incredibly important to Arsenal. And I feel that this is a return to form for him, and hopefully he can kick on against Liverpool and bring us back the 3 points there as well. I've actually been incredibly positive so far, so let's bring the mood down. It's areas of concern, and I'm going to talk a little bit about, I don't know, a game of two halves. Maybe let's have a look at it that way. Let me talk about the first half. And for me, I wrote down a note to basically say, if anybody's looked at the definition of insanity, it's doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. And we've become incredibly predictable and incredibly easy to kind of understand of how we play. Our sideways balls across the midfield to try and find spacing gaps to exploit that simply don't either happen. And we were fortunate in some cases during this game that a bit of luck did go away. I do feel that Jesus' goal could have been saved by Turner. He did go straight through the legs. And if that didn't go in, maybe the result of this game could have been a little bit different. But we just don't take enough risks. We're incredibly sideways. We don't take enough risks. We certainly don't take enough shots, or at least get our shots on target. So I say that because I looked at the stats. We had 19 shots and only 3 of them on target. And I'd be hard pushed beyond Jesus hitting the post and the goals to reflect and remember an opportunity that actually felt like something could have happened, because I don't feel that there were many, particularly in this first half. And the interesting for me, like I said at the start, we totally controlled this game. We didn't even give them a sniff. We didn't even give them any opportunity in having the ball and playing the way that Nottingham Forest wanted to play. They had literally nothing. But that all kind of changed up. And I wonder if Arteta tactically had switched something or given them some advice at halftime that really changed our approach to this game. Because when we sat off the ball a bit more, and gave them and allowed us a little bit more space in this game, we widened those gaps. We gave them more of the ball and allowed them to get a bit of a feel for the game. That's when it opened up. When we were in less control of this game is actually when we felt more in control of this game, at least from a score standpoint. When we were doing that space, we were having quicker movement. We were moving the ball. We were striking the ball more. We varied our playing positions. Like I said, there was Saka switching with Emil Smith Rowe. Martinelli and Saka both became a little bit more central on occasion. Jesus was moving around a lot more around the pitch and getting himself in different positions. And those small tweaks made a big difference for us in reality. And I feel that the first half was really, really cagey, really, really tentative, really risk averse. The same, like I said earlier, I think if I'd got to 80 minutes and it was still 0-0 and we were playing the way that we were playing, we weren't going to win this game. That goal was not going to come. And the second half really opened up for us. I feel we took more risks. We played a bit more dynamic football. We tried to open up in different ways a little bit more and try to change up our approach. I don't know whether Arteta consciously made the changes to kind of have a look at how the game had played out in the first half, but then to change it in the second half. But some of those little tactical switches that he probably did make really did change it. And I suppose the thing I wanted to call out here, it just felt a bit, the first half felt like the Arsenal of old. It was, we were trying to walk it in. We were trying to score that perfect goal. It happened 3 or 4 times. You know, we were trying to recreate that moment of Jack Wilshere against Norwich City, where they score almost the perfect goal. That's what we're always after. We try and, there's a joke, I feel, I said this before, it was in the IT crowd, where the problem is with Arsenal, they always try and walk it in. And it used to be something that really stuck with us back in the late 90s to early 2000s. And it really seemed to resonate a little bit here as well. We were just, it's like we get allergic reaction or scared whenever we get on the outside or inside that box. It's like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And we even seem scared to shoot. Some of our decision making in that moment is incredible. I mean, if anybody's seen me play football, and there's not many of you would have, I hate shooting because I'm always scared of missing because it probably happens far too often. As a striker, as a winger, you know, even Martin Odegaard, I would say during this game, I don't know where he's lost his shooting boots. He needs to get those predators off Jesus if he's not got them already. He just seems scared to do the things that he's been doing so many times before and putting those goals away. I mean, I would admit that Nottingham Forest did some fantastic blocks, some fantastic defensive work during this game to maybe block some of the chances that we had. But I just don't feel we took those opportunities enough. So there's a little bit of creeping doubt for me that some of the same patterns are emerging from this game as in previous games. I think I said earlier that I was happy that at least we'd unlocked some of those problems earlier than we had in previous games, and that we didn't wait the entire 80 minutes to try something new, to try our luck, and then find it was too late to get the result. At least in this game, we got the result we needed, and we got it earlier than expected. It's to bring those moments much, much closer to the left. And you know, I think in our first half, despite dominating this game absolutely entirely, like I said, the field tilt was almost at 100%. We didn't create enough. We didn't take enough chances. We didn't take enough risks. And ultimately, that could have cost us had Jesus not put that goal away and put us 1-0 up and really put us back in the driving seat of this game, because that game certainly opened up a lot more after that moment. Right. That's all the bits I wanted to talk about. I do feel like I say, really, really positive, although a little bit of creeping doubts coming in towards the end. For the parking lot, nothing major other than the fact that Arsenal are not going to do any business in January. But if you look around, nobody else is really doing much business either. So I think I'm pretty comfortable and happy that we're going to move into the latter half of the season with the squad that we've got. Let's provide they all stay fit and healthy. Liverpool at the weekends, myself and Jason will be going to that game. So I am incredibly excited for that game. Don't ask me again at 90 minutes unless we win. But let's see. I think it's going to be quite a cagey affair. I think we're going to try and be dominant on the ball, and that's going to be difficult against the Liverpool side, who are very good at that too. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think we're going to come away with a win. I think it's going to be a 1-goal lead, either a 1-0 or a 2-1. I expect Liverpool to score, to be honest, and so 2-1 probably feels more likely to me. But it's exciting times ahead. You know, we win that game, and if say Liverpool lose tonight, that puts us top. Now, not to say that I'm not putting any faith and trust in a Chelsea side that kind of can't find any rhythm whatsoever, but stranger things have happened. And, you know, they don't have Salah. I think they're getting Trent back, who is just coming back from a big injury as well. So let's see how that goes. But fingers crossed we can go into this game at the weekend. Even if Liverpool are still 5 clear, that would put us within touching distance. So super, super excited. Really looking forward to that game. Myself and Jason, let's see. The game's on Sunday, and Jason will be travelling back from the States on Sunday to go straight to the game. So I don't envy his jet lag tiredness during this game. I'm sure he's going to be a bit somber, but I'm sure the Arsenal will bring him back to life. And we're back podding, hopefully on Sunday or Monday, where we can talk to you again about that game. So if we don't speak to you again before that, have a great week. Thank you very much for joining us here on the Rip Roaring Reds. Please do like and subscribe if you're not already a listener on your podcast provider of choice. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Do leave us a 5-star review there. They're all 5 stars so far, so please don't ruin it for us yet. And if you're on YouTube, please do write a comment, give us a like. Please do subscribe to the channel. It really does help us grow this community and grow this channel. And we'll see you again very soon.